Mm-hmm. Oh, it's really nice to see everybody. Ooh, I'm just reading your comments. How are you guys today? Welcome in. Let me know when you can see me. I'm so excited for our bonus session today. I think this is going to be a good one, and there will be plenty of time for questions and answers too. So I'm hoping if you have questions on your mind, related to protection in general, that we can have time for that too. Do you guys see me? Oh yeah, Rena sees me. Hi everybody, welcome in. I've been here for a couple minutes. So I've been reading your comments and getting ready for you. I'm very happy to see you today. Stephanie does not see me. Well, hopefully you'll get that fixed in just a second. Welcome in. This is a bonus class. This is not part of your regularly scheduled programming. This class, I'm really excited about it. It's actually a class I'm teaching at your request because you wanted to talk more about protection and hear more of my thoughts. And so I'm really excited. If you have your PAM protection kit, that is what we're working with. So here's my altar situation. This is what I've got cooking today. So we are going to work with our tools. So if you have them, that's great. If you don't have your tools, that's okay too. Brief ceremony today. I'm really happy to see you. So thank you so much for being here too. I'm glad that you could take some time out of your week. We have class again tomorrow, right? We have Soul Shift tomorrow. We have session 1 for October. Hey, baby. Good to see you too. Sherry. Okay, are you ready? So I am going to start out by showing you some of the tools that I have at Sage Goddess that are relevant to the work that we're doing. This is not to motivate you to buy anything, but sometimes people don't know. And I go live every day, sometime between 12 and 2 p.m. Pacific time, but a lot of you can't make it during the day. So a lot of you miss out on a lot of things that happen on the website. I'm not going to show you very much, but these are just some of the things that, because my team, when they know we're doing work like this, they specifically create things and bring things in that might be supportive of that work. So I want to make sure you know what those things are. And then we're going to talk. I'm going to talk to you, and then I'm going to answer your questions. And then we're going to do a little ceremony today, too. And it's just nice to have class today. I don't know. I'm kind of happy about that. I like having class twice in 1 week. I love the big public events and stuff. I really do. I love full moon. I love new moon. I love new moon most of all. But there is something nice about just our community, where it isn't just everybody. So I'm looking forward to that time with you. So yes, you can absolutely, Stephanie. What I'm going to talk to you about today, and if you're new to Soul Shift, I saw somebody say today was their first class. Oh, it is. Is it Taranchola? It's her first class. If you're new, it's worth repeating, because some of you have heard me say things 1,000 times over 9 years, because some of you have been with me the whole time, and some of you are relatively new to working with me. Tools are great. They're great. Crystals are vibrational. Oils are vibrational. Sound is vibrational. Everything's vibration, right? And vibration in physics, by the way, because I'm a scientist by training, and I know a lot of you are scientifically oriented too. Physics defines vibration as the rate of movement or oscillation. So a vibration is just literally how fast something vibrates. And the reality is, everything vibrates. I'm vibrating, you're vibrating, everything in this room is vibrating, nature's vibrating. We all vibrate at different levels. I vibrate higher when I feel well. I vibrate lower when I don't feel well, as all humans do. Some crystals vibrate at a higher rate, some crystals vibrate at a lower rate, which is why you want a lower vibrational crystal when you're having an anxiety attack, but you want a higher vibrational crystal when you're having depression, right? So the reason I say this is, the reason tools help, and the reason I've committed, a third of my life to creating them and bringing them to people around the world is that they have their own vibration, and so they can help you modulate and calibrate. That's what crystals and tools do, okay? However, there will be times where you don't have tools and you need to do work. That has happened to me so many times, okay? Usually when I travel, I'll be somewhere and I'll encounter someone and I'll need to do some work with them, and it'll just be like, I don't have anything. I don't have white sage. I don't have crystals. I don't, as my grandmother would say, I don't have a pot to piss in. Okay? I know it's a crude saying, but she used to say it, and I thought it was really funny when she said it. She used to be like, you don't even have a pot to piss in. So, you know, there are going to be times where you don't even have a pot to piss in. So you're going to have to be able to work magic without tools. That doesn't mean tools are not worthwhile or special or beautiful or any of those things. But it does mean if I don't train you to do some work without tools, I am not setting you up for success as a spiritual teacher. You know? Yeah, there are times. I mean, I travel with white sage. If you were to open my suitcase right now, you would laugh. You would literally giggle. There's Palo Santo, there's white sage, there's loose matches, there's a lighter, there's oils, there's stones, there's blah, there's this, there's that. But you know what? You go for a hike and you need to do some work and you got nothing. So you have to learn how to do some of your work with no tools. Your pot went missing. Now, that's right. So, well, it sounds weird, Cecilia, but you are your own tool. Just like, you know, you got to learn how to do everything yourself at some point, right? We have to be able to stand on our own, or a window to throw it out of. That's right. So, I will always talk to you about tools, and I will always have tools that I offer because it's part of what I do, and I really believe in the magic and the energy of the things that I bring. But having said that, if you don't know how to do it without the tools, you're going to be up a creek at some point. Yep, use the Force, Luke. Sometimes the Force will be all you have. In the most intense moments of my life, where protection work was needed, I did not have time to go and get anything. And so all I had was my mouth. And so I spoke my tools. I used my words. And the effect was profound. Yeah, I do want to point out that Smudge is with us. We do have a friend. He's parked it in here. He took a break and he went to the bathroom and he had a little food. And then during my live earlier, Karen and Carly was there. A couple of you were live. He jumped back up. And that is now where apparently he's going to live. And I bet you he won't move before 3 p.m. when we're done. Yeah, I mean, the candle's great. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Yeah, I love that. Linda said I was just at the Redwoods. They are magic. I used to hike in the Redwood Forest in Northern California with Dave and the kids when they were babies, you know, like 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. They didn't love it. And of course, David is notorious for making people hike farther than they can actually get back. I could tell you some stories. Anyway, he's very present and yet also very not present. He actually could care less what we're doing right now, that's why I love cats, because he just doesn't care. He's just here. Okay, but if you see a rumbling over there, don't let it freak you out. We are talking about protection. I don't want you to think that, you know, the couch is moving by itself or something. It's we do have a nice friend. Okay. There will be plenty of time for questions, so I do want you to think. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to start by smudging. And I'm going to talk a little bit about smudging because we got some different smudges into the shop recently. And like I said, some of you are with me on my lives and some of you can't make it. You're at work or, you know, you've got stuff to do. So the most important, especially if you're new, the most important herb that you can smudge with for protection, which is our topic of conversation today, is white sage. Salvia apiana is the botanical name, and it grows wild from almost to Santa Barbara, like Santa Clarita. So if you know California pretty well, it grows from Santa Clarita down to Baja, Mexico, so below the U.S.-Mexico border. And then from where I live, which is right on the cliffs of the Pacific Ocean in California, it grows all the way east to what's known as the Anza Borrego Desert. And that's about as far as it grows, because once the daily average temperatures exceed 100 degrees, which is what happens in the high desert, for example, If there are daily average temperatures above 100 degrees for more than 3 months at a time, the white sage can't survive. However, same thing goes if there's too much humidity or if the temperatures drop too low, it can't survive. So it has this kind of sweet spot, white sage. It's now endangered in California, which is why we farm it. So we have a private farming relationship with the people who grow our white sage, which is important so that you know it's sustainable. It is illegal actually to go and harvest white sage. Just if you go to a park and you see it growing and you start clipping it, that's not legal in California. So white sage is really important. If you don't have any white sage, I have it at sagegoddess.com. You can find it different places. But I do recommend always having a bundle of white sage available. I'm using this for right now because I had a couple of sprigs left from when I made bundles at the house a couple of weeks ago. And just to conserve resources, I like to burn it just one leaf at a time. Because it, yeah, well, you know, buying white sage seeds is tricky. There is a dude, I don't know him, but I like his energy, on Etsy, who sells white sage plants. What did I buy from him? I bought I bought my labdanum plant. I bought a rock rose plant from him. So that's one source. You might want to look up white sage live plants on Etsy and see if you can find the dude, because I liked his energy. He's the only one selling white sage plants on Etsy as far as I could tell. Then there used to be, God knows with the pandemic what's happened, but there used to be one of my favorite nurseries in California is near Escondido, and it's a native plant nursery. So they grow their own plants, and they only sell plants that are native to Southern California. And so they had a lot of different cool varieties of sage, and they also had Salvia apiana too. So, but I think your best bet probably right now is the guy on Etsy. And if you find him, tell him that, you know, we here in Soul Shift are grateful for him, because it's hard to find. My dad grows it from seed, but you know, my dad's retired and he has time to do that. I mean, white sage has to be watered a certain number of times a day. You have to mimic a desert environment. My dad created his own like irrigation system where he puts like just droplets of water, and he doesn't, you know, wet the roots and all this stuff. Like my dad has this whole. He's very cute, but I mean, he's 80 and he has nothing else to do. So it's if you work and you can't be at home and you can't create some kind of like interesting irrigation system, growing white sage can be a little bit tricky. He just kind of took it up as a hobby, which I love. There's a lot on Etsy. Oh, no way. Well, so do us a favor. If you guys find somebody on Etsy that has it and that you like, would you share it? Because I honestly, I don't know where to tell you to go. And I do think it's nice in cases like that for us to information share. So, yeah, my dad's an interesting guy. It's just once you get him telling his stories, it's hard to get him to stop. Oh. We started at 2 Pacific, Annette. Is that 4 Central or 3 Central? I don't know. Okay. He actually would be probably really happy to come live and talk to you about growing white sage. Would you guys be interested in that? I'm trying to figure out how to do it because I have to stay 6 feet away from him because we're socially distancing. My parents are in their 80s, and I, even though I'm being very safe with the virus, I've been so cautious. Like I haven't hugged my dad since my daughter's birthday on March 15th, which is nuts. I see him every week, but I haven't hugged him. So anyway, let me see what I can do in terms of maybe having him, I don't know, recorded or something like that. Maybe he can just sit 6 feet away from me while we're on camera, which is awkward, but we could try to make it work. Okay, because, you know, I mean, if you get your plants somewhere else, he might have something interesting to share with you about, hey, you trim it this way or don't trim it that way, or, you know, his fatherly wisdom could be useful for us. So that's Salvia apiana. Palo Santo, which we still get from Victor. Now we're getting our Palo Santo through Victor's wife, who's beautiful, Kathy. Palo Santo comes from Peru, and Palo Santo is actually related to, as you learned in Soul Shift last month, related to copal, right? So they're all from the Burseraceae family. And so Palo Santo Just like white sage, the smoke is antibacterial, antimicrobial, but hugely protective. It's good to inhale it if you don't feel good. In fact, I'm going to light a little bit and just inhale because it's, if you're sick, it's good to inhale some Palo Santo smoke every day. So don't mind me. It's also good just to put a little bit of frankincense oil up your nose when you're not feeling well. So that's just good for your general health and well-being. He would love to show you his plants. He's not good on presentation. His plants are all in those black plastic pots, and he's got like different sizes of them. So he goes from like the minis to like the 1 gallons to the 5 gallons. He's already planning which plants he's going to plant at our new building, which is kind of cute because he grew white sage in our old building. So, okay, Deborah shared Lazy Ox Farm. This is helpful. I really appreciate your recommendations because then I will shop at those shops too. I'm very concerned, especially about people's businesses right now, and so what I've tried to do is make sure that I'm shopping with all of my favorite shops. To keep them going. I don't shop all the time, but I try to make sure I'm still frequenting my favorite shops and restaurants too. Okay, the newest bundle that we just brought to the shop day before yesterday is Pinon Pine, which is really good for releasing trauma and grief. Pinon Pine grows in Mexico and New Mexico. This is Mexican, but it smells exactly the same as New Mexican, just depends on if it's US or Mexico. Ours is Mexican. And it's really sweet. It's different. A lot of people love Pinon Pine. I've used the essential oil in a couple of perfumes, not too many because it's very expensive. So we have 2 different sizes. You just see the big Mama Pinon Pine. And then we also have cedar bundles right now at Sage Goddess. So I'm just showing you everything. Cedar, in Native American tradition, is considered a grandfather tree. And so it's very good for helping you overcome fear. If you're afraid, so if you're feeling afraid, cedar, white sage, and black sage, which is mugwort, are the 3 really big heavy hitters that you want if you're feeling intense fear. If you're grieving, then you want juniper cypress. If you're releasing heart chakra energy, especially from the past, Pinon Pine is really good. And then if you're sick, Palo Santo. And if you can only do 1, white sage. So do you guys have any questions about herbs and trees and resins? Copal is really good for protection and also for clearing space. That's why I spent so much time teaching you about Copal in Soul Shift. That class was one of my favorites when we talked about the 3 different types of Copal and which people prefer, which people don't prefer. I really liked teaching you all of that. Did you get a mugwort plant, Karen? And Karen's in the southern hemisphere, right? So you probably can grow that quite well. Oh, that's really interesting. I'm glad you got it. Yeah, I actually was able to get a belladonna plant. I got one on eBay. A live and very healthy belladonna plant. So you can get some very interesting things online too. Mugwort is called black sage, and some people consider it stronger than white sage for protection. I don't use mugwort for protection. I use it to get a little soft. It softens your central nervous system and it enhances your intuition. Some people say they can hallucinate with mugwort. I've never been able to hallucinate with mugwort before, but it makes me a little soft and helps me to be more connected when I'm doing readings. Yeah, if you want to really fly away, Boom Shiva. To this day, Boom Shiva is the most popular incense I've ever made. I don't know if we have any in stock right now, so I don't want to get too excited about it, but Boom Shiva has buchu in it with some mugwort and lavender, and I'll have to tell the story again at some point of when I made Boom Shiva. I made it up in San Francisco, and I was burning it, because when I'm making a new incense, I tend to just, I'm constantly testing it, adding something, testing it, adding something, testing it. And I ended up hotboxing my whole team, and they all got really high. And this is back in the early days, and so one of my team members I was like, what do you think of it? She's like, this is the happiest I've been in a really long time. She's, my friend Lisa, at the time I think she was, I don't know, 50, so she must be 60 now. So anyway, she was just like, I don't know, I'm so happy right now. I was like, oh yeah, baby. So anyway, that'll take you right downtown to Funky Town when you need it. Okay. So that is the incense I wanted to tell you about. And then I want to tell you about some stones. So again, keeping in mind that we're going to do ceremony today with no stones, because I do want to talk about not having stones, right? Boot shoe is the bomb. It really is. There's nothing quite like it. And you got very soft with your mugwort, Janine Gibbons. Yeah, we'll see if we can make more Boom Shiva. We know it's a fan favorite. So if you're in Soul Shift, don't forget that we have these wands for you. This is a perfect protection wand because it's got the smoky quartz sphere on the top and the smoky quartz cabochon, and then tiger's eye and tiger's eye. And I designed it so that the one tiger's eye and the two here create like a triangle of energy, and then it gathers up protection energy, and then you can send or receive. So these are still available for you. We still have the black tourmaline. This is my favorite protection stone that we have at sagegoddess.com. These are faceted black tourmaline spheres. So I'm just showing you a couple of things that you may not have seen before. I know. So the wands are beautiful, the black tourmaline spheres. If you don't have a black tourmaline sphere, one of the things I've noticed, this is my personal piece that I kept from when we had those. I've noticed that the faceting makes this feel higher vibrational than black tourmaline usually does. Usually black tourmaline for me is very grounding, but this one almost speeds up the energy. It's hard to describe it. I almost feel like there's a swirl of energy going around this piece, and I think it's because of the facets. So if you missed these are here too. We have Izurine in stock, which is, and I am going to talk about Izurine today because it's one of the stones. When you really, really, really feel like you're unsafe, usually what that is there's too much of other people's energy in your field. And there's so much I want to tell you today, so I'm trying to kind of pace myself, but I only have two other things to show you, and then we'll just focus on the energy. What I've noticed, when I feel anxious or agitated or nervous or, what a lot of us call unsafe, it's usually because I've been doing too much or around too many people or in too many people's energy fields, and I haven't done enough ceremony, and I haven't done enough clearing of the aura. And so Izurine, which comes from Africa, a lot of people confuse it with black tourmaline, and you can see why, right? It almost looks like a tourmaline crystal, but it's not. It's a different crystal. It's shinier than black tourmaline. Black tourmaline is more matte, and Izurine has this kind of high sheen to it. And it's a little bit green in certain light, where black tourmaline is not. So this is what Izurine looks like. I think these are $5 at sagegoddess.com. Anyway, Izurine is something that you may want to consider wire wrapping and wearing. I actually had Sylvia make a piece for me out of Izurine years ago that I love because it creates a border around your aura. And sometimes that's what you need. Too much of other people's energy. And this is one of the most important things I think I'm going to tell you today. A lot of times when you don't feel safe, it's not that you are in danger. It's that you're picking up on everybody else's everything. You are not meant to. Yeah, Casey says that he has a wire wrapped piece and it does the job. Now, you don't want to overdo it with this. I have overdone it with Izurine. I've worn my piece for a couple of days. And literally, sometimes, it's very rare to find a terminated piece of Izurine. Even my big piece, Nathan, that sits on my altar, is not terminated. So I don't have one to show you that's terminated. Isn't that funny? You don't want to overdo it, because I've had times where I've worn that piece from Sylvia that I'm telling you about, and then I've realized, I'm not getting texts, I'm not getting calls, people aren't responding to my PMs, what is going on? And then I realize, you can overdo sometimes, especially with crystals. And so what I would say is, if you're working with shungite or izurine, which are the filtering crystals, right, keeping your stuff in and other people's stuff out, sometimes that's good, and it can feel like a vacation. You know, when you finally delineate a boundary around your aura, and and you're not taking everybody else's stuff on, you start to go, whoa, I can't believe how much of my mood can sometimes be a function of other people's stuff. Do you know what I mean? And even for me, like if I'm too much in Facebook, for example, and it's, you know, because Facebook, especially these days, is nonstop, like, you know, someone's sick, or this is happening, or this is terrible, or did you see the news, or whatever. It's like a bombardment. If I take a whole day away from Facebook, sometimes that's all I need. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this isn't mine. This is other people's stuff. And energetically, sometimes you cannot tell the difference between what's yours and what's other people's. And it's not about being smart, and it's not about being sensitive or accurate or intuitive enough or empathic enough. It's just that literally energy is energy. And so if you ever have one of those days where, like, at the end of the day you just crash into bed and you're like, I can't take one more thing, the number one thing you need to do is recognize and ask yourself, how much of this is mine and how much of this is other people's? And then I would say also curate your Facebook. You know, I've done this. My Facebook now is better than it used to be. But, you know, choose your Facebook wisely, right? Because the people you allow into your Facebook world as friends or, you know, whatever, are then populating your feed with what they have to share. I try to make sure it's mostly you guys on my friends list and not people I don't know, or, you know, people who are just there to, you know, stir up issues and trouble. Yeah, I'm reading your comments now. Yeah, and we all take on a lot of people's stuff, Deanna Franco. I think it's really true. Yeah, the mala. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the mala. So the other two things I wanted to tell you about, and then we won't talk about stuff anymore, but I did want to show you these. We have really gorgeous smoky quartz spheres in the shop today. So if you don't have smoky quartz, this is another protection and transmutation stone. It takes something, anything. It takes you, it takes your energy in your house, it takes, you know, if you touch this to your jewelry or to your other crystals, it absorbs. It's like a sponge of energy, and it holds what is harmful away from you. This is what I give to people who are going through chemotherapy or IVIG or just heavy duty, consistent and long infusions of different kinds of intense medical treatments, because it's good to mitigate some of the effects of those. If you don't have selenite in your collection, you need a good piece of selenite. Selenite is one of the most powerful crystals for clearing. Selenite and black kyanite are the two minerals that clear anything they touch, but they don't have to be cleared. So you don't have to take special care of this. You don't have to clear it, you know, at any particular moon phase. You don't have to worry about it. It's just constantly cleaning and purifying your environment. So smoky quartz is important, selenite is important. And then this mala, I wanted to show you in case you didn't see this. This is the last thing I want to show you today. We had these made. I wanted a root chakra mala. So this much of the mala is almandine garnet, and then the back half is smoky quartz. And then this is silk. So I chose red and brown, like a mix of silk. If you put your essential oils on this, like if you put your Pan Protection perfume on this, it will smell like that forever. Because silk is a natural fiber, it's a living fiber, and it's highly absorbent. And so unless you were to really wash these, it will forever smell like whatever oil you put on it. And so you can wear it, or you can, obviously I use mine to recite mantra. And there's different kinds of mantras, like there's lots of different protective mantras. So we can put some of those in your Facebook group if you're interested in that too. Woo! Yeah, this one's a really good one. The person who makes our malas for us, they're all hand knotted and they're really nicely done. So if you need a mala, I got a mala for you. All right, I'm gonna put stuff away because now we're gonna focus on not stuff. Do you have any questions about any of that before we start? Lindsay's cooking up some copal. What kind of copal are you cooking up for? Or cooking up today? Selenite is good for a pendulum. Sure. And of course, I love it for opening circles. And you can open a circle. I mean, this is big fancy, right? And you know, some of you have the replica of my wand, but you can also open a circle with this. You know, again, it's a matter of using what you have. Okay, so we'll do the protection mantras for you. Alexis and I will work on that and put that in your Facebook group too. Okay, good. Yeah, all selenite is good for clearing. So it doesn't matter whether it's Poseidon from Greece or Moroccan selenite, which is what this is, or if you have the Nika selenite from Chihuahua, Mexico. It's all the basic same mineral, and it's really good for clearing. Types of juniper, I think whatever's local and harvestable for you is what I would recommend. You know, everybody has a different type of juniper that grows close and local to them. So if you have local juniper trees or a forest where you can find it, and then if not, you know, most juniper bundles you find online are suitable. Best stone for distance protection, Isurine. I don't know what it is about Isurine, but I'm not the only one who feels that way. I've encountered a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, Isurine. But again, you don't want to overdo it with Isurine, right? No, I've only ever seen, well, I don't know, Kelly, I shouldn't say no. But the Isurine I work with comes from Africa, and it's always black. I've never seen red-brown, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So if you're finding red-brown, I would love to see it too. As far as I know, Isurine only comes from Africa, and it's spelled Aegirine. Yeah. Aw, I'm so glad. It's true, Sylvie Brewster, sometimes you do. It's really, really true. Stephanie, I believe it would help someone dying of cancer. You know, and then you can also think about stones of comfort. Ocean jasper is a really good stone when people are transitioning, bringing them into a deeper state of peace. I love Girasol quartz for transition. And then one of my favorite sage goddess perfumes of all time is called Transition. I have my original bottle. It's got like 10 drops left in it. I don't think we have that in stock right now, but that was one of my favorite SG perfumes that I've ever made. And I don't want a new bottle because I have my OG bottle with the little shitty label on it, but I liked it, and so I don't want to trade it. Yeah, and hopefully, like to Sheree's point, if I'm teaching you about something today about a stone that you have but you haven't worked with in a while, I'm kind of hoping you'll go back to your collection and dig it up and start playing with them again. You know, your crystals want to be with you. They want to be working with you. That's why they're here. Oh my goodness, I can only imagine, Stephanie. I can only imagine. So, okay, so let me dig in with everything else that I want to get to today, and then I'll continue to answer your questions as we go. So if you do have the tools that I offered you, that would be your Pan Protection Candle, which looks like this, and your Pan Protection Perfume. And I'm gonna explain what Pan Protection is in just a second, but I want to make sure I tell you the notes in your tools. Pan Protection is coriander, which wards against negative energy. And coriander's been used for hundreds of years for just that purpose. Mugwort, which of course we talked about earlier, softens the central nervous system, prepares you for meditation, opens the central channel. Dragon's blood, which is for healing, cleansing, all of that. Dark patchouli, which is for grounding but also releasing negative energy patterns. Angelica, which is one of my teacher's favorite essential oils for protection, but it's so hard to find. We have pure Angelica, but it took me a year to find Angelica essential oil. I could find the fragrance oil, but I couldn't find the real thing. And then lavender, which neutralizes negative energy. A lot of people don't realize that about lavender, but they know lavender brings peace, they just don't understand how, and it's because it's a neutralizer of energy. And so if somebody's really in a bad place, lavender will at least get them to a baseline, and sometimes that's all you need. And then Palo Santo, which is for physical and spiritual cleansing and healing. And then it has Salvia ampiana, white sage essential oil, which of course, again, for me is the gold standard of what it really takes to move energy that's stuck. This is coriander seed. Karen, thank you for asking. It's coriander seed. Yeah, so ultimately what Pan Protection is a combination of 3 perfumes, Shield, Arcs, and Armor. Those are the 3 original protection perfumes that I made. The first one that I ever made, again, I was in San Francisco when I made Arcs. And then I added on Shield and Armor after that. And I haven't really made a lot of new protection blends because it's like, what's the saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. I I really have given you, now I will say this, Lilith, the embodiment perfume for this month, has black hemlock absolute in it. That is the first time, I had not found that ingredient before. And there's a whole bottle of black hemlock absolute in the mother bottle of the Lilith embodiment perfume. I had to do something special for Lilith. This month she's our guide in Soul Shift, so if you saw the Lilith embodiment perfume, that'll be the first time in a Sage Goddess scent that you're smelling black hemlock absolute, in addition to all of the other notes that are in there too. I will make a note to make more arcs. That's right. So if you have shield, arcs, and armor, you basically have Pan Protection perfume. And then the only other protection perfume ingredient that you wouldn't have is in the Lilith embodiment perfume, where I put the black hemlock absolute. I Am Safe is great too, for sure. I'm not sure. Anna Michelle, let's check in. Alexis, let's check in with the team about whether we can make the soap and the perfume again for Pan Protection if you guys would like it. It's surprisingly floral, Lilith. The hemlock is sweeter than you would think, but the hemlock, the black hemlock absolute, is black. It's one of the few essential oils where I'm pouring it and I'm like, it isn't even like dark brown, it's black. It's a pretty cool thing. Dark Moon is good too. Not necessarily, Dark Moon is not so much a protection perfume. Come back. Jess Wilson will talk more about Lilith during session 1, so this coming Wednesday, tomorrow, and also mostly at session 3 when we journey with her. I'll be teaching you the story as I know it of Lilith, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you too. Okay, so I want to talk to you about protection. And I'm going to share with you my thoughts kind of at a high level, and then I'm going to be monitoring the feed, because if you do have questions, I really would love to answer them. Keep in mind, everything I'm teaching you today is my opinion, my experience. Even the concept I'm sharing with you today, Pan Protection, is a name that I came up with. I asked my spirit guides what to call what they do with me, and that was the name that I got. Pan in Greek means everywhere, ubiquitous, right? Coming from all sources, all directions, all locations. And so Pan Protection, the concept of Pan Protection, is that you can call in, and we're going to call it in today for anybody who wants to. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. This is not like a requirement. This was a class that I'm offering just kind of as a gift, because a lot of you were like, no, let's talk about this, you know? No, Bonnie, it's not a strong floral, because there's a lot of other notes there in there. There's a lot of base notes in Lilith, so, but it's not as deep and dark as you might as you might imagine. Pan Protection just means protection from all directions, all sources, at all times. And I started to realize that, so when I first started my magical work when I was a teenager, 17 was when I first started classes. And I really didn't know anything. I was raised in a Christian household. My mom was very magical. My mom is a medium and a channel, and she was an automatic writer. Mostly before I was born. She ended up writing something that really scared her, and so she never did it again. My mom could write in languages that she didn't speak, and she wrote accurately, the grammar, the punctuation, everything. So the long story short is one day she was automatic writing, and she wrote something, and she didn't know what language it was, so she brought it to her uncle. Is that right? It was my grandmother's sister's husband. So it was her mom's sister's husband, so yeah, her uncle. I never knew what to call him. I didn't know him for very long. He died when I was young. But she wrote something in a language she didn't recognize, and so she brought it to him because he knew a lot of languages. He'd been in the war, and he'd been stationed all over the world. So he started reading what she brought him, and then looked at her and said, "Who wrote this?" And she said, "I did." And he said, what did he say after that? He basically started yelling at her and told her, to get away from him, and what was she doing and what was she messing with, and there's no way she wrote this. And the long story short is, in German, it was German, she didn't know German, but he did. And in German, this was a letter that was written to him from someone that he had been a prisoner of war with in camp, in his war camp, who died. Okay. And so he was very angry at my mom and also really freaked out. Like, what is this? Who are you? How did you get this? Like, you didn't write this. And so, of course, my mom at the time, I think, was in her 20s, and so she got scared and ran away. And nobody ever talked about it. I mean, I asked about it later in my life, and they would talk about it, but then they didn't want to talk about it very much. It was kind of like, we don't really know what happened, and, she doesn't do that anymore, and all those things. Yeah. So anyway, my mom has not automatic written since that experience happened. I remember asking her to teach me, and she was like, absolutely not. But I'm telling you that story because that's one of many stories about my mom and my grandmother too, her mom, who were very gifted healers and channels and psychics and, whatever else you would call those gifts. I've never automatic written because my mom's story scared me too. And I think everybody has different gifts, so it's probably not even a gift that I have. I don't know what exactly it said. I just know that it was addressed to him from that man that he was in the war camp with, who died. So nuts, right? And of course, nobody has the letter. But enough people told me about it and then told me not to talk about it anymore that I know it was real. You know what I mean? Like, you can't make stuff up like that. At this point, my mom, it's funny because my mom doesn't have any desire to do any of that anymore. My mom kind of walked away from it, and she had lots of experiences I could tell you about. I mean, I grew up around all of this, and I remember her going through her whole, process with it too. All to say that when I was 17, 18, I was coming into my own gifts and I was curious, but I couldn't really go to her because she wasn't really open to helping me. And so I started taking classes and ended up doing a ceremony. So I had only taken a few classes when I did my first full moon spell, and they didn't teach us about opening a circle or anything like that. So, things didn't go well for me. I'm not going to retell the whole story. So a lot of you have heard it. But it wasn't good, okay? And so I ultimately stopped taking those classes and didn't continue on a Wiccan path and found my own way, over the course of my 20s by starting to find other teachers and going in different directions. And ultimately that's why I don't really practice a strictly pagan path. But all to say that in the early part of my exploration, I didn't have any training or any support, and I only had one teacher who didn't teach me very well. And so the rest of my, heading into through my 20s and into my early 30s before I started Sage Goddess, as I was 37 when I started Sage Goddess? Yeah. So the rest of that time, from 18, 19 years old until 37, was really a process of me trying to find my feet. And every single teacher I've had has had different beliefs about protection. The way I was raised to believe about protection is that you don't have to worry about protection because God protects you, right? God protects you, Jesus protects you. I was raised in the Christian faith. And I was raised that you can call upon what's known as the Holy Spirit in the Christian tradition if you really feel unsafe. And the Holy Spirit is the Spirit of God as it exists on the planet Earth. So, I needed an Athena. I didn't have an Athena in the early days. There was really nobody teaching. I mean, I used to read Starhawk books, and who was the other one I read all the time? I can't even remember her name. But anyway, I mean, I got my hands on as many different books as I could, but there was nobody really teaching, not in this way. There were covens and things like that, but I couldn't find something. So all to say that when I started out in my life, I was always taught, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost, right? God the Holy Spirit. And that's where you go for protection. And then when I started moving into a pagan path, I started learning about the elements, right? And the guardians of the directions, and that they're also forces of protection and balance in the universe. And that, air protection is different than fire protection, is different than water protection, is different than earth protection. And that's one of the things about pagan training that I still think is really beautiful, because each one of the elements has its own way of creating protection. The The reason why we have to think about protection at all is that we live in a dual, or what's known as a polar universe, okay? So I kind of want to go back to just the basics for a second and talk about that. There is light in this universe. There is whatever you want to call it. And I'm not someone who says, oh, you have to call it God or you have to call it source. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I think all the names for it are the same thing. There is that energy in the universe. There is light, beautiful, vibrant, holy, sacred energy in this universe. And it's accessible to you at all times. The one training that has been true for me consistently without ever failing me is going to be part of the backbone of next year's programs, which is the Hermetic tradition. Because next year we're going to be really diving deeply into alchemy in our online classes together. That is the one tradition that's never failed me. And part of what I love about it is it's not religious, it's actually scientific. The way Hermetic wisdom works is kind of like a if this, then that. If this is true, then this other thing must also be true. If there's light and beauty in the universe, then the reverse, the opposite of that, also exists. If there's kindness and good and generosity, there is also evil and cruelty. And that vibration, those vibrations also exist. If there is one, there has to be the other. Does that make sense? We live in a polar universe, and that's one of the Hermetic principles. Okay, so that's one of the main things I want to tell you today. The reason why we have to even think about protection is if you believe in goodness, if you believe in beauty, if you believe in love, if you could believe in a creator, then the opposite of all of that is also true. Okay, now, other teachers of mine, for example, my teacher who attuned me through the different levels of Reiki training, for example, her philosophy is if you align yourself to the frequency of love, the highest, purest essence of love, her philosophy is you don't have to worry about protection. You're automatically protected because the vibration of love is so strong that nothing can really counteract it. Now, I believe this to be true, okay? I actually really do believe that if you can find a way to align yourself, to embody, to vibrate with, to oscillate with, the lightest, most purest, most effervescent source of all loving energy in this universe, it is very difficult for, it is very difficult for what is the opposite of that to touch you. And so when I started talking about teaching this class again, it was interesting because someone in the group, and I can't remember who it was, but someone in the group commented and said, hey, Athena, I thought a couple of years ago you said we don't have to worry about protection because we just need to align with love. And at the time, when I was saying that, I was working with this particular teacher that I'm mentioning to you now. I'm really trying to think about how to put this. I don't think that is untrue. However, it is my belief that over the last, I'm going to say 12 to 18 months, it's hard to put a time stamp on it, okay? It is my belief that over the last 12 to 18 months, a different frequency has established itself on our planet. What I've seen in meditation, the last time I did ayahuasca, I saw this, which was almost exactly a year ago. It was like in about a week, it'll be a year. What I was told is that there is a different frequency operating on the planet right now, and even they're concerned about it for us, is what I've gotten. Okay. If you believe that we're here on Earth and that there's anybody else in the multiverse, which I happen to believe that there are, but they're at different dimensional realities, and so they vibrate at different frequencies or levels of oscillation. And when beings vibrate higher than we do, we can't see them. Animals can, cats and dogs can, but humans can't. This is why you can't see spirits. Spirits are vibrating at such a high frequency. In order to get into a meat suit, in order to get into a human body, you have to slow your rate of oscillation or vibration down so much to become eye visible in the third dimension. But once you leave this dimension, other things are eye visible. Does that make sense? I do have a good source of ayahuasca, but I can't ever share it with you because I can't risk him. So you have to ask around in your communities, because it's unfortunately it's a controlled substance, so I'm not allowed to share my source. I'm getting to all of your questions, by the way. So my response to this student who was saying, yeah, but what about 18 months ago when you were, or 2 years ago when you were saying, oh, we don't have to worry as much about protection if we just align to love? My response is, I personally feel like this is an entirely different reality today. And it really doesn't have anything to do with politics. It's a frequency. The frequency may have manifested some of the weird things that we see politically or socially, or, you know, the sad kind of like conflict-ridden dynamics that we see. A frequency can establish that. I would never blame like a person or a political situation or anything for a frequency. I think it's the other way around. I think a frequency establishes itself and then the material circumstances play out. Does that make sense? Humans are not that powerful. We are a result of the frequency on the planet more than anything else, right? So I think there's a different frequency at work. I think we do have to concern ourselves with protection at this point. I don't think about it all the time, but I think about it often enough. And so one of the things I do, and I am trying to keep up with your questions too, but just keep in mind I'll also make a little bit of space right when we're done in case there's anything that I miss. I'm trying to go back through the feed too to make sure I'm not overlooking too much. I did see Sheree's question too. I know this sounds crazy, and again, you don't have to be like me or do what I do or anything. Everything I'm sharing with you today is my opinion. You know, if what I do seems too extreme to you, because I am a little bit overprotective energetically, but you have to remember, I lead a community of over 1 million people. You know, we have 1 million people on Facebook, we have 250,000 on Instagram, and there's a lot of people in our communities and stuff. That I do my work in a really public way. And so if it seems like I'm a little bit of a stickler, you have to keep in mind that the amount of energy that I'm running to do the work that I have to do is immense. And it's taken me time to kind of like build up the strength to do it without it overwhelming my personal energy field. And I've had to learn how to be more of a hollow bone and not to like, you know, I have a whole protocol I have to go through in order to not take on other people's stuff. I will not watch a scary movie. Dave knows this. If we're watching a movie, and even for a second, if they start to do any kind of Latin incantation or anything, sometimes people, when they're making those movies, they don't know what they're invoking with some of those incantations, and they're actually quite serious. I read and write and speak Latin, and you can very quickly, with a very quick turn of phrase in Latin, you can invoke something that you don't know how to put back in the box. So even Dave, we were watching something, and all of a sudden there was like some scene, and it came on, and they were starting to do something in Latin, and he knew. He just went, pause, and looked at me like, do you want to leave? I've never watched a scary movie since I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. They're not allowed in my house because they're not allowed to be played in my house. And I won't talk about it. I won't look at it. I won't listen to it. Having said that, this is extreme. And a lot of you love scary movies. I won't even watch The Craft. Because there's some energy in The Craft that isn't in alignment. Practical magic walks the line. Do you know what I mean? So I don't do it. But I'm not saying that you can't do it or you shouldn't do it, or but the minute I hear Latin is when I particularly shut things off, because producers and writers and all these people, they don't read, write, know Latin. They have no idea. They have no understanding of incantation and anything like that. Is that helpful? Okay. So anyway, up to you if you want to watch it. My daughter loves kind of the scary movie stuff, and so if she comes to me and says, can I watch this one? I say, you can watch it by yourself, but like my son won't watch it of his own accord. He's just like, I won't do it. My son is kind of more my frequency, and Dave and Zoe are more kind of aligned. They like the scary stuff. Okay, so anyway, I'm not saying you can't do it, but I am saying just be cautious. And what I would say is, especially if there's Latin, maybe just mute that part, because again, words are very powerful. They have a vibration, and the old incantations are more powerful than anything modern. And so if you start to hear anything in Latin or read anything in Latin, I would just mute that or shut that off or turn the page, because you just don't know. And they mispronounce it anyway, but it doesn't matter whether they mispronounce it, because the spirits who respond to that kind of stuff, they understand it whether you pronounce it correctly or not, unfortunately. Can you watch it safely? I'm sure you can. I don't know how, so I don't have any good suggestions for you. It's not like you can watch it with your fingers crossed under your butt. You know what I mean? I don't know how to do it. Well, maybe they are, Rinna. I have a hard time. It is a blanket statement, so forgive me if it's not, if I'm offending you or anybody else. I'm sure they know partly what they're doing. But I will tell you, a lot of people just go kind of hocus pocus, look things up, and they could be opening a door that's hard to close. Having opened a door that's hard to close before, that's why I'm so cautious. Does that make sense? So again, I'm not telling you guys not to watch scary movies or that they're all bad or anything like that. I just can tell you that stuff is very real, and you have to be very careful, because it can, again, there are doors you can open that are difficult to close. Is there a difference between frequency and vibration? No. Frequency is the rate at which you vibrate, oscillate, because vibration is oscillation in physics, right? And so frequency is the rate at which you vibrate, but they can't be separated. Every vibration has a frequency. Okay, so anyway, I mean, at some point in this conversation, I'm probably going to say something that's like too extreme for you or not in alignment with your views or anything like that, which is why I always give the caveat, this is just me and my experiences and my beliefs and what I do. And then if you want to be more, more open and more inviting of the energies, it might be that you can do that and not have any trouble with it. Is that helpful? And just smudge. If you watch something that, is overwhelming for you or that you feel uncomfortable afterward, that's when you smudge. Yeah. And so I can't even, the other thing I can't do, and it's funny just being candid with you, when there's a crime, and it doesn't matter where the crime is, I can't read anything about it. Because it's like I go into a vortex and then I start getting information, and it's like I don't want to be involved. So I have to be very careful. Like if people start saying, oh, did you hear about this thing and what happened to this person and this and that, if I start listening, it's like it just takes me down this thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, I mean, it's a crazy thing, but I've had, victims of different experiences try to contact me and things like that and wake me up in the middle of the night. I'm very careful with my psyche. But again, you know what I mean? It's up to you and what resonates with you. Okay. How do I help Zoe stay protected? In my experience, so Zoe has a different, this is what I mean, again, I only know what I know. This is just my experience. My kids, first of all, do not work with as many people energetically as I do, so they have a much tighter energetic field. I hold containers, big containers with a lot of people in them. So I think that there's a burden, a responsibility, let me put it that way, that I carry that my kids don't necessarily carry. Now, if they were to decide to do this work later on, then they probably would require a different level of support. Does that make sense? I overdo it probably on the protection side because of how much energy I run and how many people I'm in contact with every day. So, Zoe has a very limited sphere of people around her and energies around her. If she were to, decide, yep, I want to work with 1 million people, then I would be like, well, then we have to talk about how to do that. Yeah. And there's no manual for that, right? It's just like I've had to learn as I go. Yeah. So Julie Baxter's asking a question that I want to transition into because it'll lead us into the next part of the conversation. So she said, Athena, do you find it hard to turn off spirit? Meaning, are you always open? So this is what pan protection is. Are you ready? And like I said, I feel like it was something that was offered to me. And so it feels like a gift. And you don't have to do it. If it doesn't feel good to you, you don't have to do it. The only harm of doing what I've done is it can shut you off a little bit. And so it can, I have felt at times, has kind of hampered my intuitive gifts a little bit, especially if I really allow, there's almost like an armor that comes. And if I really allow that, then it can make it a little harder for me to read for people, is one kind of side effect of engaging in pan protection. But again, the benefit of it is universal and consistent protection without me having to ask for it all the time. Does that make sense? So what pan protection is a blanket, the way I think of it. It's a blanket of protection that you can invoke, that you can request, that you can receive, because I feel like it's given freely as a gift from the spirit side. And it basically is universal protection from all sources at all times without you having to consistently request it or, recreate it or charge it or, all of that. Does that make sense? That's right. Yeah, I mean, you can become aware of things without inviting things into your space. Is there something you'd want to not do if you're going to do an automatic writing or card session? Here's the thing. My mom didn't know how to open a circle. She never had white sage. She never had black tourmaline. She never had a selenite wand. I mean, we did have that conversation in my 20s where my mom was like, if I had, once I really started to get into saging and clearing and tools and selenite, I remember my mom saying to me, if I had all of this, maybe I wouldn't have had some of those other experiences. So I think that it's okay to do automatic writing and to do card readings and to do all of the things that you do as a psychic, as a channel. I just think it's important to smudge and work with your crystals and, open a circle and call in the guardians of the directions. And I haven't had any untoward ceremonial experiences since that one when I was a teenager. Every other spiritual experience I've had in ceremony has been nothing but positive, safe, and secure. I've never felt uncomfortable. I've never felt, sincerely, which is kind of a crazy thing to tell you because I've done ceremony all over the world with all kinds of different people, and I've never felt unsafe. And I've never felt that the containers that I hold are unsafe, do you know? But, one of the things, I think one of the benefits of being in Soul Shift or Crystal Masters is I open the circles and close them for you. Like, so even if you do ceremony with me and you never open or close a circle, it doesn't matter because you're doing it in my circle. And so it's sort of like someone's always leaving the light on. You know what I mean? So that even if you forget or whatever, you're held in that container. Now, in my experience, I've never called in pan protection for anyone without their express permission. So, is my family pan protected? Yes, but I have their permission to pan protect them. I've had those conversations, and my kids are old enough where we've talked about it. So I think if you want to engage pan protection with someone or for someone, I think it's really important to have their permission. I think here's my 2 cents, by the way. I think if you have small children, I think they're protected within your protection. And I think you only have to recreate that or teach them as they get older and they leave kind of your direct sphere of influence. I think a mother with her children has dominion there. And I think her protection or her lack thereof translates to her children. So I think if you have small children and you're doing ceremony and you're in the house and you're calling in protection for yourself, I feel like if you have small children, this is just me, I feel like they're still kind of part of you. And then I think there's a rite of passage, whether you want to say it's 11 years old or 13 years old, depending on the religion and the tradition. You know, I've always thought about it around 13, which is when girls and boys are bar and bat mitzvahed in the Jewish tradition, because that's one of the rites of passage that I'm familiar with coming from our family. But I think once they go to that maturity, they become adults, they almost become responsible for their own protection at that point. And so, like, as Nick has turned 13, I've taught him more. He does a lot of his own stuff. As Zoe has become, you know, grown into herself too, I have found that I've had more of those conversations with her, and she's smudging, and she has her own shell and her own bundle and her own, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of like turning over the reins to them to teach them, and also giving them permission to do it on their own too. Yeah. Okay, so this is beautiful. So, so pan protection is something that I feel like I've been gifted. I'm not special. I mean, I think other people have it too. It's not like, oh, Athena has it, but nobody else does. I'm sure other people have it too, and they may have a different name for it. They may not even be consciously aware that they have it or that it exists. I'm just very attuned to subtle energies, and so I know that I have it. I can feel it around me. How bad is it to open the circle and close the corners? I don't think anything's bad per se. I think you just want to make sure that as soon as you remember, you close the circle and release the guardians of the directions too. You know, like Danielle's children were raised in the craft, you know what I mean? I believe that too. And Kimberly said, my son is disabled, will always be under my protection. And I think you just know that. Don't you feel like you just know that as a parent? Like, I think you know how to take care of your family. I think you're given the right tools and the right wisdom at the right time. Can you be too protected? Sometimes you can. Now, the only downside of that, I've told you this story too. We were up in the Bay Area and we were at a gem show. I was vending back when I did such things. And there was this guy at the gem show, and I had felt him energetically kind of all around the room. And he kept coming up to each table and talking to the different vendors and stuff. And I was talking to a customer, and I could feel him energetically coming up on this side. When I finally turned to engage with him, he looked at me and he was going to start to talk to me. And then he said, I can't talk to you. I was like, oh, really? And he said, yeah, your guides are telling me I don't have permission. And I've had multiple experiences like that where people have said, oh, you know, I tried to send you Reiki and I was told that I can't. It's very hard for me to receive Reiki. It's very hard for me to receive readings, all of that, because I have this kind of perimeter, like a shield wall kind of. And so on the one hand, like, I probably don't get as much healing from other people because it's harder to send me healing because my wall is up. It's probably harder, you know what I mean? Like when people, and funny things too, like I have a lot of clients who tell me stories like that weird men will friend them on Facebook or like send them these weird messages, and I don't get those messages. And I've always thought, is it part of my like shield wall? Like you would think I would get weird messages all the time. I really don't. Like the only messages that come into Sage Goddess for me are customers asking about different things, but I don't get weird or, you know, abusive or inappropriate or anything, like kind of ever. And it's kind of bizarre, but I think it's partly about the energetic boundaries that are there too. There is a little bit of a wall. And so it's just like, it's almost like it sort of dissipates that energy, right? So now some people like to be open. And so what I'm going to teach you and do with you today, if you prefer to be open, if you like to have just, you know, unfiltered, unmitigated energy coming your way, well, and I won't judge you for that, because honestly, that can be fun too. And sometimes when you're young, you don't want to close yourself off. You want to be open to everything. So, oh, thanks, you guys. Then don't do what I'm telling you today, and just allow yourself to be where you are. This is more just an option, and it may be that like right now you don't want to be more protected than you are, but down the road something happens or energies change or whatever else, and you do want it. Do you know what I mean? So if you want to be more wide open, I would say don't do what we're talking about today, but just know it's a tool that you have in your toolkit. Does that make sense? You can repel unwanted energy from all directions at all times without having to even say a word. And that's ultimately, I guess, what we're talking about today. You sure can, Aurea. I mean, I leave my blanket because I just don't, I'd rather exercise an abundance of caution. So it's up to you. I've never done the in-between though. I either go all in or all out. It's like I'm either wide open or I'm buttoned up. It is not permanent. So you can tell your guides, okay. I mean, I'm not saying this now, but you can say, okay. I release it and open the floodgates and wish to desire all that seeks, to find me, kind of thing. I am undoing those words. That is not my intention. But if you want to, you can. So this is nothing that I'm ever going to teach you is permanent. Because I don't believe in anything like that. I think that we always have free will. So, but if you want to be open, but seriously, I never have like men or women really ever saying anything or doing anything. So, I don't do an in-between, but you could try it. You could ask your spirit guides for an in-between, that you're open to energies that are friendly, but that you seek pan protection from energies that would cause you harm. Oh, thank you, me too. Well, so here's the thing, Linda. I think I'm pretty open to the feelings of my students. They just can't cause me harm. So I think of myself as being very open, like even to when they're upset or when they're frustrated. But if they seek to do harm, at that point, I don't think I need to understand their feelings. I think they need to move into a different sphere. Does that make sense? So I feel like I'm still open. I feel like I still understand. I feel like I still sense. I feel like I'm still connected. I mean, I don't think you guys feel like I'm not tuned into you. I mean, I make an active effort to be open energetically to you, but not to harm. At that point, that isn't a relationship. At that point, that's an opportunity for that person to do some growth, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Weird dudes need to go, Amy Berea. Yeah, it's true, Linda. It's true. You're talking about high schoolers. But like when I was working with elementary school kids, the last 2 years in that mentorship program that I was leading first for Nick's class and then for Zoe's class. It's very sad that had to end. But same thing there. I felt like I was very much in tune with them. But there was, it's funny. There were some of those kids who would not come to my gatherings. I could tell they were interested and curious, but there was something off there. And we're talking about 10 and 11-year-olds, Heavy energy, dense energy has no age. It has no gender. It has no defining. You can't put it in a box. I've seen dark energy in the form of 4, 5, 6-year-old children. I've seen dark energy in the form of 70, 80, 90-year-old adults. I've seen dark energy in the most innocent-looking young, naive girls, and I've seen dark energy in the form of, I've seen it in every form. So, yeah, so some of the kids, I could tell they were curious, but they would kind of watch from afar, and then they would not come near it, and it's like, so it is, you know what I mean? Whether that was them or me, I'm not sure. So, all right, well, I appreciate all your comments too, you guys. So, what else did I want to tell you about all of this? Looking back at my notes. Okay, so in my experience, pan protection incorporates all of the traditions. I think of Saint Germain and the Violent Flame, right? And I think of Archangel Michael and the incredible white pillar of light that Archangel Michael can place over you. I think of, again, for me, the visual is always the Holy Spirit from the Christian tradition, because I was just always taught that was the Spirit of God on earth. How do you help a child who has that energy? What's interesting is I think that in many cases the people most equipped to help a child who has an attachment are usually that child's parents. the question is, can they see it? Do they sense it? Do they understand? I mean, a lot of times attachments are in families and they can pass from person to person. And so it's like, can they see it? You know what I mean? Do they know it? A lot of times when I've talked to parents who have children with attachments, they felt it when they were in the womb. And, because energy translates through the uterine wall for sure. And a woman who gestates really understands the energy of her child. So anyway, I think in a lot of cases it's primarily the parents who can help. I don't believe in things like exorcisms and things like that, but I have seen kids with attachments, and I think it's a process and a real dramatic healing and incredible spiritual work that has to happen. Yeah, it's tough, and especially if you did feel it in the womb. So one of the things you can do, especially if it is your child, I think that's the other reason why parents are so well equipped, because as I was saying earlier, I think a parent's level of protection extends to their child. And so if you have a young child and you feel that energy, I think it automatically crosses your field and engages with their field. Again, until they reach that plateau, that threshold where they become adults. And then at that point, they have to begin to manage their own energy field, because, of course, you won't always be there to manage their energy for them. Interesting. Yeah, so I don't know about dark auras. I'm not one who really works with auras, I have to tell you. It's just not my gift, and it's not my medicine. I don't look at people and go, oh, I can see your aura, and it's very blue kind of thing. That's not my gift. It's not that I don't believe in auras. The aura is nothing more than your energetic field. Your energy field vibrates. It's like if you've heard me talk about it before, your energy field is about 12 inches outside your body. It's even between your fingers. If I could raise your frequency just a little bit to get you to like 5D, I'd be able to show you. It's like a web. You just can't see it. Sometimes if you sit and do this, you'll start to feel it. It's like almost like you can try this. Sit for a minute and go like this. And maybe look away. You can almost start to feel the energy being pulled, because it is a web of energy around you. And if you could see what you were doing in another dimension, you would see that you can pull it and it'll retract. You can stretch it, and it'll bounce back in. So your aura is nothing more than that webby kind of substance that surrounds you, and your aura connects to the auras of other people. And that's how we get like a first impression, right? It's like I can sense someone's aura. Like I could feel that man coming up on my left side, because his field was vibrating in such contrast to my field that I could feel the contrast, right? Do you feel it? You can start to feel yourself pulling it. It's the weirdest thing, but it's like, because you're not pulling on anything that's attached to you. But if you close your eyes and go soft a little bit, smoke some mugwort, you'll start to feel yourself pulling that. And then you can try pulling it down and pulling it up and see if there's a difference. Like I can feel it. Your hand will start to get really warm too. Anyway, it's just an interesting experiment to learn how energy moves. But again, all I would have to do would get you to vibrate, because that's basically what ayahuasca does, is take you from 3D to 5D so you can see. I would just have to get you to vibrate a tiny bit faster. I have had friends who say that they can see more when I have friends who sit on like quartz beds and lay on quartz beds, and they say, because quartz raises your vibration, so they say that when they work with enough quartz, they can start to see the matrix in the field. It's insane, isn't it? So those are the kind of fun, energetic tricks, and that's all over your body. So sometimes too, if you have pain, you can start to pull on the matrix around where you have pain. Like if you have carpal tunnel, you can start to pull the energy. And all it does is just sort of give the energy, give the lines, right, the meridian lines or the key lines, it gives them a way to move around. It helps to move stuck energy. And even now I can feel this. I can feel the difference between pulling the energy up and pulling the energy down. And again, it helps if you don't look at it, because then you'll feel it more than you can, I can feel MRI and CT scans, because I have to have about 6 hours of them a year. I have to have my head, neck, and cervical spine done every year for my MS, and I can feel them. And it's crazy, because just like Unico, I can feel I can feel how the magnets are pulling my energy. I fall into a really deep trance during MRI, which is good because laying in that machine for 4 hours is not the easiest mental game to play. Yeah, so just see if you can play with it. You know what I mean? Like, see if you can pull it. I don't know. We've gone a little bit long. I hope you guys are okay with this. I was supposed to be a 1 hour class, but I mean, what can I do in an hour? It's very hard to do anything in an hour. What's the first step in helping? Can you clarify what you mean by helping, Lisa Cunningham? Just so did you see him move? Smudgy is our special guest today on the bed. But yeah, let me know because I want to be able to answer your question correctly, and I just want to make sure I know what kind of help you're asking about. Okay. I probably am radioactive. I think we all are to a certain extent. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you guys are not in a big hurry today, although I'm not going to keep you too much longer. Yeah, I wish they had music in MRI. That's my only thing. But I do MRI at Torrance Memorial, and they do a beautiful job. That's where our lovely nurse Sandy is, and they do a beautiful job. Okay. What's Alexa saying? Cats don't get past you. I'm glad this is helpful. And like I said, it's okay to like disagree with me or like not want to do this or any of that. This is just literally me going, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've learned some things and I've seen a lot of shit. I mean, I have confronted things you wouldn't want to confront with my own very eyes. So when people tell me things aren't real or that's not true, it's very hard for me because I've locked eyes with light and dark. So I know what it looks like. And I think part of the reason why I was forced to have those experiences was so that I would know. So that when I tell people, I would have some credibility. If we were doing this whole class, but I told you, I've never really had any intense experiences before, you'd be like, well, then how do you even know? What are you even protecting yourself from? I know what I'm protecting myself from, which is why I'm pretty unapologetic about it. But I think it's also good for you guys to know where I stand, so that when you come and do ceremony with me and, learn about my practice, then you understand. Because it's, I think some people don't take the other side of magic seriously enough, and you don't want to give it attention, but you do have to have respect for it because it's there. And if you don't have respect for it, you won't, and you don't acknowledge it, then you won't do what you need to do to stay safe from it. Yeah. Woo! Yeah, Karen's like, I still remember seeing Santa walk through our front door when I was 4. That is something of an unbelievable experience. No, I know, and I know, Rinna, I know you've seen, and Sith Princess said the same thing, made a choice, right? I mean, you couldn't. When I married Sherry's, who's your sister in Soul Shift, I married her son to his beautiful wife last September in Indiana. So I flew out to Indiana to marry them, and they got married in a historic mansion that's haunted. And so one of the men who was there was super magical, and he and I ended up bonding. And so at the end of the night, he was like, come with me, I want to do some energy work upstairs. And I knew what was up there. I mean, I could feel it the whole night. And I went anyway. And so, he was like, there's some souls in this room that need help crossing, and I want to help them, and I think you can help me help them, and do you want to help them? And I did. I was up there and I helped those souls. There were some souls in the kitchen of that house that had been forced to be in that kitchen, and you could feel it, and they had passed away and their spirits were still there. So every once in a while I'll go and do that, especially if somebody else asks me to do it and it feels like the right thing to do. But on my own, would I have gone upstairs to the kitchen and started helping spirits cross over? Probably not. It's not my favorite thing to do on a Saturday night. Yeah, it's very, very true. Okay, so anyway, that happened. I can't remember if I told Sherry before I went up or when I came down, like, I think I just helped the spirits in the kitchen cross over, and she's like, of course you did. Of course you did. I did. I went. We could feel the spirits leaving. I mean, honestly, there was like this really dense energy in the kitchen, and so he was standing on one side of the kitchen and I was standing on the other, and there was a hallway, and like you could literally feel the spirits leaving the kitchen and moving. I can still feel it in my body, like just moving through the hallway, and it's like, whew, just like the relief of the spirits that had been bound to that place for whatever reason, and feeling them like literally move the kitchen and move like out of the kitchen and down the hallway was intense. It was very intense. Okay, so let's talk about Pan protection, and we'll do a little work together. That feels like the right next thing to do. So this is the, if you have your candle, great. If you don't, that's great too. You don't need it. And by the way, if you ever don't know what's going on in a room, don't forget to use your pendulum. When I'm unsure energetically about anything, a person, a space, your pendulum will pick it up before you do, you know? And it's just like, you can take it around your room. What I do is I take a pendulum around a room and watch, I take it to places I know are clear, and I watch its movement. So north, south, right? And I've taken this pendulum all over this room, and it never changes. Because the energy is really clear in here. When I bought this house has a purity of energy. There's never been violence or any kind of harm in the house. There's only 2 owners before me, and I know the history intimately. So I know that nothing ever happened here that would really block the energy, which is part of why I like this house. Because there's no part of the house I don't feel safe going to by myself. But I've been in spaces before where it's like, you're going around a room and it's like this, and all of a sudden you go to another place and it just starts to go like this. You don't have to ask yourself, is there something going on? Like, the pendulum's going to read it for you, which is why I taught you how to dowse in Crystal Masters, and we've worked with pendulums in Soul Shift. It's a really important tool. And if you have a good pendulum that's accurate, then you'll learn to trust it. And that's a good reading for that too. Put it on Smudge. They can help a lot. That's right. Okay, so we have smudged and cleared. Bells. Bells are also magical, right? Bells are used in the Hindu practice. They're used in Wiccan and pagan practice. To some extent, they're used in Druid practice, which signifies ceremony. It's also a high vibrational clearing sound. It's a toning, right? So it helps to move the energy too, which is why a lot of people start ceremony with a bell. I'm going to quickly open a circle, just because we are going to call in the guides and guardians of the directions, just quickly. And you don't always have to do a full shebang, right? So what I'm going to do for our purposes here, because this is kind of a minor ceremony, we're just calling in protective energies, kind of like a web or a shield around us today. So I want to call in and welcome the guides and the guardians of the 4 sacred directions and gateways. Guardians of the East, we invite you in to whisper, to speak, to create spaciousness and clarity for us today. We welcome you in. Guardians of the South, we call you in for energies of fire and transformation, courage, strength, and fearlessness. We welcome you today. Guardians of the West, we welcome you in with water energy to purify, consecrate, transmute, release any energies that are not in alignment with our highest good. We welcome you in. And to the guides and the guardians of the North, we call you in for stabilizing energies, for presence and patience and peace, to anchor us, to hold us steady. And if it feels good, you can call in the guides and the guardians of the vertical gateways too, so the upper world, which would be all of your angelic guides, the guardians of the Akashic library, and all of the records, we call the Hall of Records, the records of all time. Those would include all of the archangels, the highest orders of angels, and the highest dimensional realities. And call in the guides and guardians of the middle world, which are all of the spirit teachers on the planet at this time, all of the guides of everyone in our community, welcoming them into the ceremony space. And then to the guides and the guardians of the lower world, which includes all of the ancestors and their bones, includes the entire planetary matrix, so plugging into the broader energy of the planet, and all of the ley lines and vortex places and points, the chakras of the planets, so plugging into all of that wisdom, power, and protection. And so that places you right at the nexus of those two axis points, right? So you're right in the middle of that vertical channel and that horizontal channel, which creates sort of a cross around you, and that's another layer of protection for ceremony. And we give thanks for a beautiful, safe, protected space in which to do our magic. And then I'm going to light my candle. And this is a candle you can light anytime. You don't have to open a circle to light this candle. I like to open a circle when I'm invoking spirit, when I'm calling in energies, because again, no, Susan, you're fine. We started at 2 Pacific, which I think is 4 Central. I'm really shitty with the time zone, Susan. Makes it hard to travel with me, I'll tell you. I just go, I don't know what time it is. Who cares? We were on time. I just don't know what your time zone was. Okay, and then let's anoint with our Pan Protection perfume. Again, this is every protective note I could possibly give you, except for black hemlock spruce, which I didn't have at the time I made these. So everything I knew at the time is in here, and you can smell it. You can really smell the mugwort, and the angelica, and the dragon's blood. You can smell all of it in here. So a little at my third eye for what I know, at my wrist for what I do, at my ankles for where I go. And when we anoint at all of these places, we also cover all of the meridian lines in the body, which holds the 108 nadi, or energy centers. So that's why we anoint at the third eye, the wrist, and the ankles. Yeah. Oh, I'm really bad with time. It's terrible. I mean, if time was important to a relationship, I probably would be divorced. I can't do time. I can't be on time. Dave and I had an appointment this morning because we just went through estate planning. I didn't have a will. So we finally did all that and got our nuts and bolts in order, so we had to go sign all of that this morning, and I just was like, I can't be on time anywhere. I'm still 10 minutes late, and I tried to be on time. I'm bad with it. It's not my gift. Okay. I have other gifts. Fortunately, I'm funny and a little bit cute because I can't be anywhere on time to save my own life. Okay, so I'm going to do this the way I do it. I'm going to, however, leave a space for you to call upon any gods, goddesses, guides, guardians, traditions, because I'm going to say Holy Spirit. That may or may not resonate with you, and so you don't have to say it. You know what I mean? If the Christian tradition doesn't work for you, or you don't understand it, or you don't like it, or you want to call in, instead of the Holy Spirit, you want to call in, an archangel, or you want to call in anybody you want to call in. You can call in Odin, you can call in whatever works for you. Okay? Well, at least I'm not alone. I know, I'm sure some people would divorce me. I totally know. It's okay. Thankfully, Dave hasn't made that choice, so. Okay. So I will do a insert here. So you insert there. So think about who you want to call upon. Okay. I love it. So roll your shoulders back, call your energy into present time. Take a nice deep inhale of whatever oils you're working with, because that'll start to create a scent association. So whenever you smell that, you'll go, oh, I'm protected, I'm safe. Okay. So we want to call upon our guides, guardians, angels and ascended masters, ancestors who wish to be here to do this work with us today. want you to take a moment to really feel your root chakra. If you're sitting down, feel your connection to the floor beneath you. If you're laying down, feel that connection, like, with your lower back, your hips, and the backs of your legs, just again connecting to the earth and feeling that tether. And then also feel the cord that extends from the very top of your head, your crown chakra, and extends skyward toward the realms of the angels and the archangels and all of the light beams in the higher dimensions. And so today, we are here to call in Pan protection, universal protection, protection from all sources and all directions. Protection coming only from energies and sources, streams of light that are in divine and complete alignment with our highest good, with our lineage, because your lineage matters here too. You might want to call upon, again, guides, guardians, gods, goddesses from your tradition and your lineage and your pantheon too. And so today we call in protection, personal protection, protection for our body, our mind, and our spirit. And so I want you to imagine, again, that protection coming from all planes and dimensions. So first we're going to welcome protection from above. And so for me, you can insert here who that protection comes from. For me, for this, I call upon the Holy Spirit, which is the essence of God on earth, the manifestation of, for me, the most divine, purest white light and energy. And so Holy Spirit, but you insert whoever you want to call upon. And again, it can be any archangel, any protective god or goddess that you like to work with, or you can just say source if that works well for you too, or creator is another word that's nice. It kind of is neutral. So I welcome in Holy Spirit energy today from above. I ask that you blanket me in your protection and in your care. I give you permission to move in my life and to create a perimeter of protection around me, around my home and all my spaces. I give you permission to enact this perimeter around my physical body, 12 inches outside of my physical body so that it encompasses my entire energy field. I ask that you illuminate this field of energy around me, creating almost a white net of protection and peace. And I ask that through this net of protection, this layer of protection, that you protect my thoughts and my psyche. I ask that you protect my heart and my mind. I ask that you protect my body and my spirit. I give you permission to move in my home, in my business, and in all spaces where I live and operate. And then I call for protection from below. I call upon the essence of the Holy Spirit to move from below. Again, this can be guides, guardians, source, creator, god, goddess, or simply another deity from a pantheon that resonates with you, connects to your lineage. Holy Spirit, I give you permission to move from beneath me, to bless the ground upon which I walk, to bless the physical spaces where I live and abide, to bless all the spaces where any of my energy resides, including Sage Goddess and all of the spaces there. I ask that through this energy from below, that you translate the energy of the planetary matrix, allowing me to receive that energy, but in a way that's safe, pure, and filtered. I also ask that you filter through this web of light all ancestral wisdom, wisdom of the bones, wisdom of my own past lives. I now call for universal protection, pan protection from before me. Everything that I can see, touch, create, I ask that you move, Holy Spirit, through my hands. All energy of those in my community, I ask that you create, enact, manifest this healing white web of protection, filtering through it all energies from everything that I see, create, experience in my life. And I call in Pam protection from behind me. Everything that I can't see. And this is one of the, I think, the unique aspects of this work is I was called not just to notice like what's in front of me, because I think we all do notice what's in front of us, but your blind spots, what you can't see, what's happening behind you, what's literally happening behind your back, right? Because you shouldn't just be protected in what you see and know and do. You should be protected with what you don't see and you don't know and you don't do, right? It's almost like protecting you before you even need the protection. So I call for universal Pam protection from behind me to infuse into all of the spaces I can't see, all of the things that I don't know. I welcome protection from sources seen and unseen, which are in divine and pure alignment with my highest good, and give you permission to move freely in my life, serving as a constant and active perimeter. And for those who are here today, in the ways that you have called it in, I call in Pam protection for you as well, from above you and below you, from before you and behind you, so that it's not only what you see, know, and create, but it's also what you don't see, what you don't know, and what you have not created yet. May it come from above you, may it bubble up from beneath you, and may it surround you at all times. Now I want you to take a moment. You can. I mean, here's the thing, Suzanne Reed, it's a great question. I think you're already doing it for your children as long as they're not adults yet. I think once they move through that threshold, this is what I'm learning as the parent of a teenager and a preteen. I think once they move through that threshold, they have to start to take some responsibility for their own energy. And so that's when I'm becoming more of an active teacher. Up until 11, 12, 13, I think on your behalf, whatever you do passes through. And so I think if you're doing this today and you have teeny town children, I think you're probably already covering them. Mm-hmm. Now I want you to take a moment right here. And so you are surrounded now. If you've done this with me here, it has come up from beneath you. It has come down from above you. It has come forward. Do you feel the energy? Because I can feel it. It's pretty intense and it's beautiful. It feels like a hug. It has come from before you and it has moved up from behind you, almost like you're in a hermetic chamber. Do you feel it? Aw, thank you, Chelsea. Do you feel what this feels like? And again, if you ever feel unsafe, you'll remember this experience of like from beneath me, from above me, from before me, from behind me. It's just, it just will come right around you. And you'll notice you did not need tools for this. The only proper tool I've used the perfume, which I think is good for a scent association. I opened a circle with selenite wand, but I mean, you got to do that, right? Other than that, this is energy work. This is not, here, hold this rock. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. In a way, it's your Taurus. I mean, that's the flow of energy that you can feel. I mean, it is sort of wrapping you in that tube, right? I'm glad to hear that, Chris, because this isn't a scary thing. You know, this is just inviting these energies to be with you, you know, to, like I say, abide in your space. And my grandmother always taught me, and again, you didn't have to do Holy Spirit, but if you did, my grandmother always taught me, if you call the Holy Spirit, he comes. There's never a no. It's not like you go, could you come, Holy Spirit? I'm afraid. And the Holy Spirit's like, I'm busy. The Holy Spirit always comes when you call. It doesn't matter whether you call at 2 a.m. or 11 a.m. or on a Sunday or on a Friday. I've never called the Holy Spirit and not felt that the Holy Spirit was there. But I think that's true of all protective energies. I think they come when you call them. And so now the difference is I choose to sit here. So I'm not now going to release this. I don't release it. I will release the circle and the guides and the guardians, but I don't release this. As I've asked them to come up and pull up this energy around me, it's not like I go, okay, I'm all done and you can let it go. Now, if you want to let it go, I love that. And I love that too, Casey. Thank you for that. And I'm glad, Daimichi, this is helping. I think for this time where we are, it's kind of nice. Because if you want to know how I feel, I really don't think very much can penetrate this. I really don't. And yeah, I think that's true, Emery. That's really beautiful. She said that's what they say about all the fully enlightened beings, the ascended masters, right? They're there as soon as you think of them. Yeah, I don't recklessly test it. I guess that's the truth too, Teresa Jolly, when you put it like that. I don't. I mean, I'm not one who goes, what's going to happen if I do this? You know what I mean? Like, I don't hang out with weird people. I mean, I hang out with weird people, but like cool weird people. I don't go like dabbling in things that I know could test this. Does that make sense? I don't do that. And partly I don't do it because I'm holding your container. And honestly, that would be reckless and irresponsible. Because if I was just going around dabbling and playing with things, that stuff could make it into our community and into our containers. That's one of the reasons why I'm such a, what's the word? I'm kind of a Pollyanna in a way when it comes to energy stuff. Like, I don't dabble and I don't play because I would never want to risk anything coming into my physical space. I wouldn't want to risk, I mean, I'm even weird about buying stuff online and like where packages come from and all of that, you know? So you're weird in a good way, you know, but not weird in a bad way. Well, I don't know, Kimberly, how do you feel? She said this will help with anxiety. Helps me, because the reality is this is a big vibrant world, and this world exists in a big vibrant multiverse, so we can't control any of that. There is nothing about this universe that you can control. The only thing you can control is you. What you consume, how you feel, how you feel, what you believe, how you practice, that's all you can control. At a certain point, I'm going to teach my kids as well as I can teach them, and then they're going to be off on their own. I'm sure it was hard AF for my mom to watch me invoke some stuff and have a bad experience. That probably was really hard for her because it would be real hard for me. But at the same time, she wasn't teaching me anything. So then I had to go and learn, and then I learned something wrong. You know what I mean? So, but I'm sure it was really hard for me to go through that, or for her to go through that with me. Karen says she's hungry. No, it's a great question though from Phoenix Rising. She said, question, will this protection keep out dreams and manifestations? No. I will tell you though, I also tend not to have very many nightmares. Now, is it because of this? I don't know. I don't have scary dreams. If I do, I don't remember them. I feel really blessed. Now, at the same time, my life probably isn't as exciting. That's what I will say. That's the downside of this. I don't think my life is as exciting as some people's lives because they've got all kinds of energies and all kinds of this and all kinds of that, and they're experimenting and they're playing and that can be exciting. It's just not the kind of excitement I want or need. I think excitement can come from other things that are not as potentially harmful. But you might find my life boring. Truly. I don't have like the ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. My life is pretty much like this. But I've chosen that because I know what this feels like, and I personally, for me, I get really drained, and I actually think it ages you really bad. So I don't like this, but if you're used to this, then my life would probably make you nuts. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to do what I'm teaching you, but it's up to you. You can do it every day if you want. If you like this and you want to do the visualization, all you're doing is reinforcing it. It's not like you're taking it apart, right? So tomorrow, if you were sitting and you're meditating and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. protection from beneath me, protection from above me, protection from before me, protection from behind me, and then just visualizing that, you're not going to undo it, right? Okay, so if you want to release it, that's exactly what you do. So we called in protection from above, protection from below, protection from before, protection from behind. So what I usually do, just as a matter of practice, when I create something, I do it in a certain order, and then when I'm undoing it, almost like opening a circle, I go the opposite direction. So you would release protection from behind you, and then protection from before you. Then you would release the protection from beneath you, and you would release the protection from above you, if you wanted to do that. And it's as simple as I release, I release, I release, I release. I'm not going through the whole thing because I don't release it, but that's all you have to do. And if you want to try it. You'll feel it. As soon as you let that, it's almost like the bottom drops out and the top opens up, and behind and before slip. I mean, you can, it's almost like a loosening of the energy. I'm curious if any of you just released it, did you feel the container open a little bit? Because in my experience, you can really feel it. It drops out from below and then it opens up from above, and it's like all of a sudden it feels like there's more space around you. Yeah. And then you can toggle, and then you can teach people. Everything I teach you, I assume at some point you're going to share it with somebody else, or teach somebody else, or show somebody else, or even better, I assume you're going to take this, kind of make it your own. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, I like this, but I might want to tweak that, or she said this, but I'd rather call it that. And then use this. Because if you're a healer or an energy worker, right? At some point you're going to have somebody come to you and say, I think I need help. And they might need this. And again, it's amazing how it's like, it just goes clink, 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 clink. It's like you're in the chamber. And your Taurus is flipped. Right? Are things supposed to be brighter? It's interesting. I don't know. But if that's your experience, I wouldn't be surprised, right? Interesting, right? Okay, so if you want to release it now. Again, just simply saying out loud or closing your eyes and thinking to yourself, release, 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 release. If you want to. Again, spirit guides, I am not releasing. I don't want to release it. If I say too much more, I'm going to end up releasing. Taurus is the work that we did last month in Crystal Masters in September. I taught you how to take your Taurus, which is really just your energy field. It's like your energy inner tube, and how to flip it. So if you haven't seen Crystal Masters from September, you can always go back and watch that. Did anybody release it? Cindy's like, I like boring. This one is not in my book of blessings because it's kind of a longer one than usual, so that's why I did it as a bonus class, because this wasn't really written anywhere. So this is a little bit different. I love it. Yeah, Casey says that he has a lot of people come to him asking for protection, so this is a good little trick to do. What if you're finding out what you are? So then experiment a little bit. And you can totally do it again, Rochelle. You can do it, you could do it again right after we're done here if you wanted to. Why would you want to let it go? So that your energy field is more open. Some people find that not as many people reach out to them. You know what I mean? Some people like the excitement of just having all kinds of energy around them all the time, and they kind of like to roll that dice. I just personally don't, and physically, honestly, given how many people I work with, I can't. It's not energetically safe. Yeah, your notes you'll have notes, so you don't have to take notes. Alexis is taking notes, so I really just wanted you to receive this, and then, like I said, my ideal scenario is that you learned something interesting today, at least maybe hopefully that I made you think about something a little bit differently, and then that you'll take the notes and maybe consider personalizing this. So again, like if you don't like Holy Spirit, maybe you rewrite it and you put in Source, or you put in Odin, or you put in Artemis, or you put in whoever, Isis, or whatever god or goddess or frequency, you know what I mean? So certainly my model is just my model. It doesn't have to be. I don't think it'll make taking Reiki attunement tough, because Reiki is the pure vibration of love. Love can penetrate this. Darkness cannot. Do you know what I mean? Like, love can penetrate this, but the other can't. And it knows it. I mean, it knows it. I sometimes will have experience, less now because I'm not so much out and about, but like when the world was not so weird, like I would be out and about and like look at someone, and it was almost like they couldn't even see me. Like there are times where I have felt just legit invisible doing this work. But what I've always told myself is, okay, well, you know what? Probably better to be invisible to that person, But it's like I've literally looked at people before and just felt like they don't even see me, and I'm like, okay, whatever that was. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but it's like, obviously I wasn't supposed to make that connection. No, don't worry, Saya, you can always go back and watch the beginning. So I will tell you, if you take a nap from this place, it's yummy. Like if you were to go to sleep right now, you probably would have one of the best naps you've had in a long time. And especially if you haven't slept. The other thing this really helps with is overactive mind, because part of the prayer is that it protects your mind, it protects your headspace. And, energy doesn't just come in the form of someone talking to you or sending you a message, or energy comes in your thoughts, because a lot of your thoughts are not your own. And so you might find doing this work, I have a lot of peace of mind. I'm pretty happy, even now. During a pandemic, like I'm a pretty happy person. I'm pretty stable. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a lot of the ups and downs. But I attribute that to the work that I do. You know what I mean? I don't feel vulnerable. I don't feel scared. I don't feel anxious. I feel uncertain, because there's just a lot of uncertainty in the world right now, but I don't feel fear. And I think that's part of the work that we're doing, is not just a physical protection, but it's also a protection from just like the thoughts, because racing thoughts can make you nuts, and that's the root of all anxiety. It really is the root of all anxiety. Alexis and I were talking about this the other day. You have permission at all times to stop thinking about everything. You don't have to think about anything. You have absolute permission to just be happy and just think happy thoughts and be positive and not worry and let the scary things go and not overthink things and not read into things. Like, you have permission to do that at all times. And I think you'll start to just really understand that and feel that when you work from this place. And Samantha's going to go work on her garden after this, right? I actually haven't had corona-somnia. But again, I don't have, and it's not to say I haven't had anxiety during this period, because I have. I've had moments where it was like, uncertain. But by and large, like, I feel okay. I'm not on a big roller coaster. So if you're feeling that kind of up and down, or people who are, doing this work with them, which creates peace of mind around their thoughts, and like teaching them that they have permission at all times to set all those thoughts down and not engage them, it's like, whew, that's a lot of freedom right there. Yeah, it's really true. I like that, Hillary. And you let me know how it goes, because I think you can modulate this, you know what I mean? That's true, Karen. Yes, 1000%, Samantha Collins, you will have notes for this, for sure. Okay. Did you release it if you wanted to release it? I don't want to complete our ceremony if you're still deciding. So if you're going to release, go ahead and release. I'm going to stay. But again, I always start with releasing from behind, releasing from before, if you're doing that. Again, I'm not doing that. And you release from below, release from above. And take a nice deep breath. The goal is to be balanced, to be even. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're going to be up, sometimes you're going to be down, but you shouldn't be this every day. You should be pretty much here. So if you find yourself going like this, I almost guarantee you it's other people's energy, not yours. So you have to constantly ask yourself, is this mine? Is this mine? Hey, is this mine? I feel really anxious right now. Is this shit mine? Why do I feel afraid? Is that mine? Why do I feel sad? Is that mine? And then you just go, well, send that on back to whoever it belongs to, because it's not mine. And you'll find it's like, oh, I don't have to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The soap is to prepare you before you do this work, or just to keep in your bathroom. The reason we make soaps as a ceremonial tool is a lot of people take showers and baths before they do ceremony. I took a ceremonial bath with the soap and salt before I went live with you today, this afternoon. So it's just something that some people do. You don't have to do it, but the soaps have all of the oils in it, so it's just another like layer of purification. What I do with our bars of soap is I cut them in half, and half goes in my bathtub and half goes in the shower. So, because Dave takes a shower every day, and I take a shower about once a week. I take baths every day. So I have my soap where I always use it, and he has his soap where he always uses it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's an optional thing, but a lot of people like to take ceremonial baths. It's kind of a traditional step in the process in a lot of different traditions, and so you're always welcome to do that. So let's release the guides and the guardians just in the reverse order that we called them in. So if you remember, we did the vertical gateway last. So we are going to release with gratitude the guides and guardians of the vertical channel, releasing first the guides and the guardians of the lower realm. We thank you for the energy from below, the connection to the bone people, to the planetary matrix, ley lines, vortex points. Thank you for helping us plug into a deeper vibrational flow, anchoring us into the center of the earth. We give thanks and release the guides and guardians of the lower world, the guides and guardians of the middle world, including all of you and your spirit guides. We release you with gratitude to the guides and the guardians of the upper world. Again, the angelic gateways, the Akashic gateways, all of the higher dimensional frequencies and spheres of experience, dimensional realities, including the Akashic records, the guardians of the Akash. We release the guides and the guardians of the upper world with gratitude. And then on the horizontal plane, we release the guides and the guardians of the north. Thank you for anchoring us, keeping us safe and protected. We release you with gratitude to the guides and the guardians of the west. Thank you for energies of purification, renewal, healing tonight, peace in the west too. Hopefully your emotional state is pretty peaceful. Like if you did this and you're in that space, you should be feeling pretty calm. Like from where you should be, it should be hard maybe to cry a lot right now. Like maybe it would be hard for you like to tap into really deep emotions from this place, because you should kind of feel like you're riding a little bit on the surface of the emotions. That's what that balance feels like, right? The emotions, you're present to the emotions, but they're not anchoring you. You're not tethered to them or controlled by them. So we give thanks and release the guides and guardians of the west, guides and guardians of the south. We give thanks and release you, giving thanks for courage, for strength, for power. We release you with gratitude into the guides and the guardians of the east. We give thanks for clarity, connection, a little bit of space from our thoughts and feelings, just feeling that spaciousness as Smudgy bathes himself in the background. I'm so glad, Lizette. That makes me so happy. I'm glad you feel it, Janine. Spiritual Xanax, that's right, Hydro Nikki. Energy work is everything, man. I'm telling you. And we release the guides and the guardians of the east with gratitude. And so this is how you learn to float in your boat. Just float in your boat. It's good stuff. And this is why I'm such a proponent of energy work, because like I said, I love tools, I love things, I love all of that. I think those are great. At the end of the day, if you don't know how to do this without tools, I have not taught you well. Because you might be somewhere driving one day and need to do this. You might be somewhere, in a meeting where it starts to go the wrong way, or you might be having an argument with someone and all of a sudden it's just like you can literally start to feel like it locks, and it's like, yeah, it's really good stuff. I'm so glad you guys were here. Okay. Aw, thank you, Sabrina. She said it's been a hard week with Mom, but I'm so happy that she's starting to talk again. Me too. I'm so glad that everything that you're learning is helping you a lot. Now I'm going to blow out my candle last. I really like the way it smells, so I've been postponing it. This is one of our strongest scented candles. Have you noticed it? Like the whole room smells like dragon's blood and patchouli and mugwort. So we give thanks for all of the protection that surrounds us in this moment and always. Amen aho, and so it is. It's good stuff. Yeah, no, as much as he's pretty comfortable right there. This is his house. I just live here. I love you, Medji. He's curled up. His ear is against Lammy's ear. I don't know if you can see, but he's got his head up against the back of Lammy's head. We will try, Lisa. Yeah, we're trying to get more of the magician pendants in, maybe for holiday is what I'm thinking. So I'm really glad. Thank you for being here, Sheree. I'm really glad that you were here and that you enjoyed it. I know, Lola. I would too. He's such a stinker. Like, he hardly ever comes in here. He used to come in here all the time. So when he kind of parked it here this morning, I was like, I'm into this. He could live here if he wanted to. But he's such a sweet cat. He really tries to make sure that we all feel loved. Like, he'll go and stay in Zoe's room for a couple of hours, and he goes to Nick's room, then he comes to me, and then he sits on Dave's lap for a couple of hours. He's very balanced in his affection, I would say. So, well, you bet, Darlene. It was such a pleasure. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you. Tina says her kitties are listening. If you ever have, I know this sounds really weird. So, I have a collection of pictures of people's cats watching my classes. Okay, I know it sounds bizarre, but people have been sending me those pictures for years. Okay, and so in the new building, I'm making a collage of people's pets watching me teach. So if you have anywhere on your phone or your computer a picture of my class going with one of your animals watching it, and you would like to be in the collage that we're going to put in the new building, it makes me smile to look at those pictures because there's a lot of cats that watch. So if you ever have those pictures, if you wouldn't mind sending me one, I would like to add your animal picture from class to my collage. It's probably a really weird request, but I have about 30 pictures over the years, and they're all pretty much the same. It's like a cat touching the TV, or like a cat's kind of kneading their owner while they're watching it. It's kind of funny. So anyway, all right, you guys. Yeah, dog pictures too. Any pictures you have of animals watching the class. People get such a kick out of it because I'm always like, I don't know if my students enjoy my classes, but their pets do. I'm big with the pets. So there'll be a picture in the hallway. So if you want to be part of the collage, send that in, and I will add you to it before I print it. You're very welcome, Zulima. I'm glad you were here. I really am. And Julia says she has 8 cats, and they're on her lap. Isn't that awesome? I love that. Oh, I'm glad, Sherry. Thank you for that. Yeah, Saya, send it to me. All right, you guys. Well, what a pleasure, and thank you for staying a little bit longer. I know we were going to do a short class, but I don't really know how to do short classes, so I hope that all of this was helpful for you. If you're in Soul Shift, I'll see you tomorrow. We have session 1 of October for you tomorrow. I'm really excited for tomorrow's class, and live readings at 2 p.m. And so I hope you're looking forward to that. And in the meantime, have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy your new level of protection if you've done it today, and if not, at least you have a new tool in your toolkit that you can use if you ever need it. So you're very welcome. Have a great night, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.